You think you're multitasking, but you're not. Your brain cannot do it and it never could. So many people call themselves multitasking masters. And what they're really doing is switching back and forth and paying a heavy task. Every single time you do this, you're taxing your focus, your memory, and your sense of calmness. And once you see what your brain is actually doing, when you're juggling things back and forth, you're going to want to stop. And I'm going to give you the protocol to actually stop. So first, let me show you the lie, and then we're going to show you the fix. And I'm also going to show you how you can integrate mindfulness, meditation, in a sense, practice into your workflow. So it's going to be training your brain to break this habit that's taxing you. And by removing the tax, you're going to become much more efficient. You're going to become much more focused. Stress levels are going to come down, and it's really going to enhance your entire workflow while integrating something that I've called a necessity, a mandatory practice in the digital age, which is the practice of mindfulness. So, as usual, please give us a like, subscribe. We put out videos on all socials. On YouTube, we put out a video every week on Wednesdays. It's very important what we are trying to educate people about because in the digital age, we've developed really, really poor habits, and those habits are doing away with our brain health. The secret to longevity is our brain health. And all the problems that we can improve by taking care of our brain. Our brain regulates everything from a top-down fashion. So let's start with this multitasking lie. What your brain is really doing. Let's look into this. So you don't really multitask, but what happens is your brain doesn't run parallel channels. What it does instead is it runs in serial. It does one thing, and then it moves to the next thing, and then it moves to the next thing. In a sense, your brain has one spotlight. It can only point that spotlight, like on a stage in a theater, that spotlight can only be pointed in one place. The actor moves, boom, the spotlight moves. What feels like multitasking is really switching that spotlight back and forth. Switch, task switch. The only true exception to this is when you're doing something that your brain has already converted into something automatic. Think of you're walking, you've been walking since you were a little teeny tiny little kid, and that has become automatic. It's moved into a part of your nervous system that is very, you don't have to think about it. You just kind of get up and go. So I can walk and I can talk. So the moment both things that I'm doing require my attention, I start to switch. Somebody's talking to you, want to have a conversation, and you're playing a video game, it won't work. You're going to miss whatever the person is saying, or you're going to make mistakes at the game. So I'm working and I'm switching over to look at my text, or I'm playing music and there's lyrics playing. It's going to impact my performance every single time. What does that cost? Up to 40%. So every switch is going to disengage your brain from task A. It's going to need to load task B. And that reconfiguration is costing you time, energy every single time. And studies have shown that it eats away at around 40% of your productive time. And so you can actually feel busy, but it leads to exhaustion, and you will inevitably have less to show for it. For those who call themselves really good multitaskers, often you're just a good worker. And maybe you know your craft really well. And so you're doing one thing and you can dabble in other things while you're doing it. But inevitably, if you were to focus on the one thing that you're good at, that's part of your job, let's say, you're going to produce more if you cut out all that excess noise. So there's going to be a gap between effort and output. And that is the switch cost, that tax that we talked about. There's also this attention residue. That's the hidden task that nobody really tells you about. The way that this works is when I'm doing task A and I switch over to task B, part of my brain gets stuck on task A. and not tax, but task A. And that is named the attention residue. When I move over to task B, my brain is never going to be fully present either on A or B because it's having still to digest what I left over from A while I'm doing B. And then all of a sudden I go back to A. I leave residue of B as I keep juggling back and forth. And that starts to overburden your brain. It starts to impact the functions of your prefrontal cortex, a part of the brain behind your frontal lobe. And it starts to impact my ability to really be present at that one thing that I want to do. So the headline again is heavy media multitaskers are going to perform worse. They have worse ability to filter out that information. It's gonna impact their prefrontal cortex, the area that does working memory. So they're gonna have less working memory. What is working memory? The ability to take things from the past, bring it into the present so that you can do work in the now. That's called memory that I am allocating. I'm allocating a chunk of my attention to the present to do work in the now. The fine print here is that this was a correlation. So researchers couldn't tell if the multitasking was causing the deficit or if distractible people were already gravitating to that practice. And I think it's a little bit of both. The habit creates the compulsion makes the work worse. Because once I have this habit of, let's say, working but grabbing my device, all of a sudden there's a notification I want to check, that ability, that compulsion, that addiction is impacting my ability to focus, which makes me have this urge when I'm wanting to settle the mind and focus to not want to do it, to want to have it move around in a sense. And that creates a mind that's very labile, inattentive. It leads to attention deficit, which is a pervasive problem in the digital age. And so, even though the headline showed this relationship between multitasking and this performance drop, it was a correlation, but the real influential signal is still there. So keep that in mind. It's not proof that multitasking is rewiring your brain, but in my opinion, it is because it creates a greater need, an inability to settle, to allow yourself to sit and to be able to then move from doing just one thing and then letting it go and then allowing yourself to then go into another round of doing focused work. There is a stress cost as well. Research also shows that this interrupted type of pattern of switching is going to start to raise your stress levels. It leads to more frustration, anger, impatience, anxiety, time pressures. Your nervous system is going to read that constant switching as low grade, as a kind of like a low grade stress, a low grade emergency. I did an article for the American Institute of Stress, as well as a podcast recently on digital stress. And that digital stress isn't a full blown explosive emergency where stress levels spike. It's this underlying, always feeling of underlying tone of an emergency, a sense of pressure and stress that builds up and builds up. And we keep sending that signal of stress that starts to ramp things up. And that's where the breakdown lies. That is why multitasking is going to start to make you to feel this kind of like fogginess, this fatigue, this burnout, sleep issues later. It really is a full bill. Higher stress, lower output, foggier mind. This protocol that I'm going to share now is what I would call mindfulness applied to work. So it's mindfulness in action, everyday mindfulness. And this is something that I want you to start practicing. Extremely important and extremely useful when you're at work. You do one thing. Remember, your brain is serial. One window. I want you to, when you're working, don't have 20 tabs open. You're not using 17 of them, then keep 3 open. Close every tab and then put your phone in another room or turn off notifications. Put it face down. Remove the invitations that you're going to have to switch. Then you name what you're going to do. Set a timer. So I'm going to say it out loud for the next 25 minutes. Remember, your brain, think of TED Talks. They're typically around 20 minutes or so for a reason. Your ability to focus starts to wane. And for most people, it often is less than that. You have to train your brain to be able to last 20, 30 minutes. So you say, for the next 25 minutes, I'm going to do this. That engages your prefrontal cortex. You've put off extraneous tabs, phone somewhere else, or notifications off, face down. And as you're working, you're going to notice the urge to return. The urge is going to rise because I created already a brain that's trained for inattentiveness, for a lack of focus. And you're going to notice it like a thought arising during meditation. So think of you were practicing meditation, you're sitting there, and all of a sudden you get this urge and you think about something and you go off with that thought, la, 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 and then you come back. Oh my goodness, I just spent this whole time thinking about this. And you try to focus on your breath again. It's kind of like that. As you're working, you're going to notice your mind is going to be pulled. And maybe you had the tab open for your email. You didn't close all of your tabs, like I said, and you go on the email. Catch yourself. Oh, let me go back to my work and focus. So as I do that, I'm training the mind as a thought arises, an urge arises, to stay on task. And that is the rep. That is how you're doing work, but you're closing this loop before you actually switch. And you take 10 seconds to note what just occurred, and you stop yourself. And then you go back. So it cuts the attention residue, and it's going to start training your brain to focus, to come back. Every time you notice the urge, you return. Every time you get distracted, return to the task. You're training the brain just like you would your muscles. That repetition is going to erode that multitasking habit. So you keep doing that over and over again. And after the 25 minutes, take a break. Do some breathing, do some movement, do the things that we often don't do in the digital age. You're going to be doing them, and you repeat that over and over again. Focus work throughout the day. You then take a break. Then focus work and take a break. If you need to fit in your emails or something else, or you want to check out social media, block that out into a focus block, where for the next 25 minutes, maybe you do it after lunch, you're doing a little leisure, you're checking your emails, you're catching up. Obviously, if your work allows it, maybe you have the type of work that you have to be checking your email more often. But as much as you can, when you're going to be doing focus work, focus on that work. And you add to your repertoire mindfulness as part of the practice. So again, next steps, what I want you to do is stop multitasking. Your brain is serial, not parallel. It's costing you about 40% output. There's going to be an attention residue that's going to be leading to stress, burnout, lack of productivity, even sleep issues later on, especially if you don't balance focused work with periods of repeated reset, recharge, rejuvenation. And remember that switching is going to have a tax, and you want to avoid that tax. So single task, one window, you're going to name it. Whenever something comes up, notice it, close the loop, get back to work. And another thing I want you to do is check out zenbrain.academy, a free month. We're moving to a new platform where we're going to have a founders launch. It will include beta access to an amazing app called HeyZenith.ai. Think of your coach, guru, mentor, powered by an IP of over 25 years that has led to this moment that you'll have access to 24/7 for any of those things that come up that nobody else on the globe can replicate because they don't own the IP that we do. You can also get a free book. So you can join for free for a month, get a free book if you join my newsletter, Zenbrain Academy Blueprint. on Beehive. The link is in the description or in my bio, depending on where you're watching this. You get a free copy of my book, another freebie, Inside Out Calm, a practical manual that will allow you to integrate a lot of these practices that are critical in the digital age. So remember, I want you to do one thing. I want you to do it fully and then move to the next thing. Is the secret to elevating your productivity in the digital age while strengthening that part of your brain that is going to make you unstoppable. Because the key to success is enhancing your ability to focus on one thing and doing it well, being present and delivering at every moment. All right. Thank you for your attention. I'll see you next week. Take care. Stay zen.